Hello and welcome to the Collections of the Museum of the Cherokee People. I'm joined here today by Laura Blythe, the Program Director at the Cherokee Historical Association. I'm Evan Mathis, I'm the Director of Collections and Exhibitions, and we have Shana Bushyhead Condill, our Executive Director. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Oconaluftee Indian Village?
Absolutely. So the Indian Village, we are actually entering our 73rd season. Yeah. So woohoo! Wow. We are an open air living history museum, and so we have all enrolled members who demonstrate the crafts, the traditional crafts. We also have delegates up there who take the guests through, teach them kind of who we are, what we do, what we've used, what we still use, and how we utilize those pieces that are created throughout the village. We talk about the clan systems, we talk about the governmental systems, all that stuff. So it's kind of just a fully immersive outdoor fun day.
What's the year, the time frame?
So it states that we're around mid 1700s, but honestly, it is kind of a full walkthrough about from first contact through even modern day. So used to, they would always be stuck in one or the other kind of time period or section of our history. Now we're trying to kind of encapsulate all of it to make sure that people come through and know modern day and past, all those things.
Love that.
And for our visitors that have never been here before, do people live at the village?
We do not live at the village. We are open on kind of a normal operating schedule of Monday through Saturday or Tuesday through Saturday, whatever fits in our season.
And then Shana, can you tell us a little bit about the museum and your time at the village?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So our museum was founded in 1948, which makes us 76 this year, I believe. And so, all of the cultural partners, which are in our cultural district in downtown Cherokee, were formed around that same time. And so that's kind of an interesting thing when you think about how we all continue to work together, and we have for the past 75 plus years. And so the museum is happy to always be a partner in supporting that kind of cultural promotion. And my time, so when my very first museum job was here. I was an intern here in 1998, and that was actually corresponded with our last renovation at the museum. So we had I guess $1 million renovation back then, and I remember being really, really proud to be here and work here. And the other thing that I did that summer was I guided at the Oconaluftee Indian Village.
And we have your moccasins, your belt, and your necklace from that time. So we're going to look at those today. We'll start with the moccasins. Do you have any fun stories to tell us about these?
Yeah, my most salient memory of these moccasins is that I remember I ended up being kind of with in a lot of scrapbooks. I just laugh at all over the country. I am in random people's scrapbooks for all of time. And there was one time I went to get a picture with a little girl, and she looked at my feet and she started crying. And she was like, Pocahontas didn't wear shoes. And she was really upset that I had shoes on. And therefore not a real Indian. So that's what I remember. But these were pretty comfortable, we did a lot of walking. I'm trying to think, a tour is an hour and some. And so we're doing a lot of walking. We got a lot of sawdust still. Village sawdust.
You need to scrape that into a little glass jar and save it. That's all sawdust right there.
That's right. But yeah, they held up, and I cannot believe, they've moved with me 60,000 times across the country.
It surprises me, because I do not have my old ones. I used to throw them away at the end of every season.
Yeah, I should have.
They were crusty.
I don't know what I was doing. But I did keep them, and when Evan was like, do you have anything from that time? And I was like, yes, I do, in fact.
I love that. Well, thanks for donating your moccasins to our collection.
You're welcome.
We'll also be looking at your belt. that you wore during that time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So my dad had this on. I had to get this back from my parents because my dad had it on his display case for a long, long time. And I was like, "Hey, Evan's like looking for me to donate some stuff from my time at the village," and so he gave it up for the museum. So that was cool. But yeah, I remember this being made specifically for me, and I was laughing earlier that it was that they were saying that my waist was so small that they had to make me one, which is clearly not the case today. But back in the day when I was a little baby girl.
And then Laura and I were talking, the design we kind of suspect you think might have been Velma, potentially.
So whenever we worked at the village together, Velma Lossy was one of the main women who would do the beadwork.
Mhm.
I know that this piece right here is specifically hers, but her design and her technique were just almost perfect.
Mhm.
Every bead was about the same size. They were very meticulous about matching it up.
Oh, and this one's signed.
hmm
Oh, that's so cool. Beautiful.
And yeah, and then back to your belt that you wore as a teenager at the village. I also worked at the village selling tickets at one point in high school and college. But when I worked up there, the beadworkers taught me that this is the rattlesnake eyes design. So you can see both of the eyes right here.
Mhm.
And that was supposed to be a design that I remember they said Velma was credited with doing this design,
Oh,
like
yeah.
creating this design. So a lot of people use it today, but word of mouth has that she created this design. So that's pretty cool.
That's special. Yeah. They were very nice to me. All the ladies up there were very kind. I remember just like I didn't grow up here, and so like to come home and have like a community at the village was really special too. Of ladies that were just willing to take care of me, and of course back then we would take turns doing tours, and so you'd get like an hour and a half sometimes where you
Yeah.
were kind of just looking to fill time. And so for me, one of the women who was doing Council House at that time was like, come finger weave. Like, I'll show you how to do it. And I was like, okay. So I sat with those ladies. And that's where I learned how to finger weave, which is still something that I love doing today. And we'll make belts for special occasions, I'll say. When I take the time to do it, it's still one of those things I really enjoy.
Did either of you try out some of the art forms that we have here today? You mentioned the finger weaving.
Yep.
So I have done almost everything that you could think of up there. I've made river cane baskets, white oak baskets. I've done finger weaving. I can do the beaded belts. I can even make a blowgun dart. It might not work functionally fully, but it's still presentable. I guess wood carving is probably the one craft that I have not picked up ever.
That's
Flint
one thing.
knife? Did you do that?
I've napped some arrowheads.
Nice.
I put a knife together. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. We have a mentoring program up there now where we hire youth ages 14 to 17 for a summer program. And part of that, because when I worked there, I was just goofing off. And I was 15, didn't worry about making any of the crafts or learning our traditions. And so that's kind of what I regretted whenever I came back to the Cherokee Historical Association. And so with that program, we have phenomenal basket makers and, people do know how to do the napping at that young age. So that's kind of the continuation, passing it generation to generation. And we have a lot of young people up there now that can do the majority of the crafts as well.
I love that, right? Like sometimes you don't necessarily realize like the treasure in your backyard, right?
Right. And now it's like, come work and you get, have a good fun summer job, but also learn these things.
Yeah.
Like we're the ones that have to keep them alive.
And you have this access to these amazing artists, and so take advantage. I love that. Well, my favorite part of doing the tour was being able to demonstrate the blowgun. So
Gotcha.
I never made anything else. I will say that. Never tried. But I did know how to shoot a blowgun.
So yeah, we did pull 3 blowgun darts today. We have, of course, been working with community to try to identify the makers, and our registrar, thankfully, is a descendant of this maker. So we believe this is probably Hayes Lossey's blowguns or blow darts. His family was able to tell by the way that he wrapped the end of his thistle. And unfortunately, they're a little bit flat now. They've been wrapped in newspaper for several years, so. But we're happy that we have an example.
We're both ready to fluff out that thistle, and Evan's like, no.
We can both probably give you a lecture on this. It's just something you go to sleep.
Yeah.
But what are the materials?
Yeah, so we think it's probably locust, question mark? Locust for the wood. This is the thistle material in the fall time when it becomes, after it fully blooms. This is the material that'll come off. And then just a regular like cotton string.
Cotton, okay.
I think. Question mark. I don't think it's super strict what you use, right?
Not currently. I'm sure it was maybe back in the early days of traditional hunting. But yeah, we use locust. We have it's called Scottish thistle. I don't know the scientific name of the plant, but it's this purple pod, and it actually busts open into a really pretty purple flower. But if you can get it to right before it busts open, tie a string around the top, let it dry out, and that's what comes out.
Yeah,
it's this fine thin hair.
Yeah, very cool.
Love those.
The next piece that we have pulled here is a traditional, it's a traditional wedding vase. This style of wedding vase, we now know is something that Maria Martinez, who was Senor Alfonso Pueblo, gifted to Maud French Welch and Rebecca Wolfe Youngbird. So they learned this from her at a pottery exposition in the 1930s in Atlanta. But as you can see, this became very common here on the Qualla boundary. This one is by Amanda Sequoia Swimmer, who was an EBCI beloved woman. And the reason I pulled it today is because it actually has the original stamp from the Oconaluftee Indian Village. And you recognized this. I didn't know if you recognized maybe the year it would have been from or anything like that.
I want to say this was 80s. Whenever I was a tour guide up there and worked at the village, I never had the honor of working with Miss Amanda Swimmer. So this was before my time, and I started in 1997. So I would say mid 80s through the 80s, maybe up into the early 90s, and then the logo changed.
Gotcha. And then I understand that this is the friendship design. Is that what you would call it?
That's exactly what we call that. And that's what the design was told to us by all the ladies who've come through there. So that's just the name that's been kind of passed through all the generations that's come up there.
And then it also has like the edge of the seashell. Like they would use the seashell to create these designs.
They would use seashells. A lot of times too, you have something these are individually hand pressed into for the friendship design, but they also can utilize like a corn cob, and they rough up the outside, but it still creates like its own unique design. So it's so amazing to see the artist so deep into their craft that their patience and their pride into their piece, like every single line, like a tattoo artist, they're tattooing their work.
Yeah. We also have a really cool pottery paddle that's probably, I would say, mid 20th century. So it's got 2 different designs on it. It looks like it was very heavily used. And our understanding is this actually came from the village. And I think Cora Arch Juanita was one of the many people that worked there during that time. I'm sure Amanda was probably there too. But yeah, it's a pretty cool piece.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
Do you have any idea like what these designs might be called?
So I believe this is the infinity print design. And they would take this and, just kind of stamp it into the pottery around the edges. This one on this side, I'm not exactly sure if this one has a name or if it was just kind of a design that somebody thought was unique and wanted to try something new. Because that's the great thing. Designs are evolving. The rattlesnake eyes, for instance, somebody thought of that, and it's pretty current whenever you look at the total scope of our history.
That's right.
And then, of course, we have one more plate that came from the village, and it has a really clear stamp from that time period.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Is that syllabary on there too? That's so cool. At the bottom?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
Oconaluftee.
Is that one signed?
Oh, E. Jackson.
Okay.
Beautiful. That's so cool.
I do love that the majority of the artists did actually sign their work whenever they were done with it. And of course, these were sold in the gift shop up there and in the surrounding area for many, many years. And we still do. We still do sell the artist's work up there today.
So we also have Shana's corned bead necklace from the 90s, if you want to hold this up.
In the last century.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is cool. I cannot remember who made this for me, and that breaks my heart a little bit. But yeah, this was again one of those things that I was able to get as a newbie at the village, getting folks to either assign me. You were asking about the skirt and trade shirt, and I didn't get to keep that. They wanted that back, but they let me keep the corned bead necklace and the belt. And
I am glad that we no longer wear the outfits, the attire that you and I had to wear.
Yeah. It's cool what they wear now.
Yeah. They actually wear a lot of the modern day ribbon skirts up there nowadays.
I think it's cool. That's something that we talked a lot about too here at the museum was what are we asking folks to wear, when they're working and when they're, representing themselves. And, of course, we get all the time that folks think that Cherokee people are, stuck in the 1800s. And so it's kind of nice to let someone wear, a Merciless Indian Savages t-shirt or something like that when they're working, so they can represent.
It's kind of a shame that when our visitors come in and they don't see us in the headdresses or what their idea of what natives should look like. I think that that's part of the goal that you and I at our venues we have is breaking down that little bit of imagination and hope, and then actually providing some good pure education. Just because we don't necessarily look one way doesn't mean we're not still here. You know?
Exactly. I think I was giving a tour earlier today, and I was talking about when our venues were founded, there was we were one of the poorest areas in the country in southern Appalachia, and so the goal is getting food on the table, and we're in a different position now, and it's exciting to think about what comes next for us.
Right.
And then just random side note on the corn beads. So these are really common here today. I feel like everybody has a corn bead necklace and everybody wears them. But they originate in Southeast Asia. So I'm interested in, researching and figuring out when they came here, because they're very much like a Cherokee plant now. They've been adapted by Cherokee people. There's Cherokee names for them. I've heard Chalutzi, which is corn mother. So some people wear them to honor Shalu, the first woman, and then other people wear them to honor the Trail of Tears, because there's the connection with the name Job's Tears, which is another name for them. But yeah, corn beads are very interesting because they aren't, but they are Cherokee.
Yeah. I mean, I think you touched on that earlier, it's always evolving, right? Just that, this paddle design is a great example of that.
Look at honeysuckle baskets, you kind of have to utilize the resources that you have an abundance of. So what do you do with vines that just take over everything? You start weaving out of it.
That's right.
Indigenize it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
And we also have here a finger woven belt made by Mary Shell, who was a pretty prolific finger weaver in the mid 20th, well, up through the, I guess, the late 20th century. This one's probably from, I would say, the 1970s based on the colors, but it's pretty cool. It's the lightning design, and we have several other belts made by her, and it was really cool because some of the people that work at the co-op across the street, they were able to pick out her belts based on how she finished the ends. So several different finger weavers will finish their belts in different ways, and I thought that was really interesting, like figuring out what their little signatures were that maybe not everybody knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have anything else to say about finger weaving or Mary Shell, but she was a pretty prolific.
I mean, it's well done.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I look at this and I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
That is, I will say, that is one craft that still I just cannot
I hate it.
grasp it. Like mine winds up coming out like this. Skinny, fat, skinny.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little more type A than y'all. You
Yeah.
guys are more creative, and so I'm like, oh, I will count this,
Mm-mm.
and it will be perfect.
Yeah, and to maintain the same tension the entire time,
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Me either. One gets tangled, I'm like, all right, I'm done. Okay.
So I have a lot of respect for finger weavers.
Absolutely.
So that's the one thing I refuse to do.
Y'all take everything else.
So we want to go for Christmas. If you
my
start now.
I was gonna say it'll take me about 6 months.
So our executive director is taking orders. If anybody needs a belt, let her know.
Crying. In the corner, finger weaving.
We had one more piece, if you don't mind to hold
Yeah.
this. With the
Oh, stop.
and these were
cool.
identified by Davey Arch, who also worked years and years and years at the village. But he thinks these are either made by Morgan Wolf, or Hayes Lossy. So these are pretty cool.
Yeah.
This pair is made with river cane. I feel like this is hickory.
This piece here.
Yeah. Question mark. And this one has the imitation eagle feathers. So I'm sure they would look very different with real golden eagle feathers. But and this one has 7 feathers, which is interesting. A lot of them only have 5 feathers. Some have 5, some have 7. I don't know what the point. I guess 7 clans, but I don't know what the ones with the 5.
Right. And just like with any artist, some of them have their own thing. This might have been that creative mark, like 7.
Here's how I do it. Yeah.
So yeah, these are used for the pipe dance and the eagle dance and several other traditional Cherokee dances and songs. So it's pretty cool.
And a lot of times, like, for instance, whenever we use the imitation eagle feathers, because there has to be certain ceremonies that take place if one touches the ground, that is a lot of the reason that the village would use something like this, because it's shown in public, and then if one were to happen to fall out, we would have to take the proper steps. And stuff.
And also, you can sell these now if they're not made with real eagle feathers. There's a federal law that protects the selling of real eagle feathers, so this is something that could be made for market and sold. You have any final thoughts on Oconaluftee Indian Village and Cherokee Historical?
It's been pretty fun just going down memory lane.
Yeah.
There's some days I just want to go back to being a tour guide.
I bet that's true. When y'all open this year?
So we open on Tuesday, April 22nd. We are a
Nice.
few days away. 73rd season. We'll be plugging along.
You did training with those guys, right? They were here in the Collections, which was cool. And then yesterday y'all went to Chloe.
We did. So we got to come over here to the Collections and actually, do a guided tour through the exhibit and such. Went up to Kewohee, had one of our board members, Levita Hill, come up, but she also was one of the 2 ladies that led the charge to get the name restored. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that kind of extra, sort of cultural training around.
Right. When we kind of just get stuck in on our positions or whatnot, but actually exploring, getting to see other things, hearing from your staff,
just helps with the whole perspective. And then, of course, our partnership with being cultural partners.
Love that. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming in and
Yeah, this was
chatting
fun.
about some of our collections. So let's do it again sometime.
Yes.
If y'all don't need this, I'll take this.